My name is Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, LLC, and I'm your host this evening of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure of having Patti Cohen-Hecht with me, who is the Executive Director of the Volunteer Center in Danbury. Welcome, Patti.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. Can you give us an overview of what the Volunteer Center is?
Simply put, we make volunteers. So when they ask Pepsi what they do, they say, we sell soda. We make volunteers. We make volunteers of all kinds. In fact, the Volunteer Center started as an initiative back in 1974, the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, wow. You weren't there then, though.
No. Actually, I was. I graduated from Danbury High School.
Oh, really?
Yes, and whoever thought that I would stay here? It was always my dream to move to Atlanta, or actually I was destined to be on the Broadway stage. And I was a theater major in college, but then went into radio and was in radio for many years until I got tired of sitting in a room talking to myself. and then went into travel. But the entire time that I was in travel, and actually since I've been 12, I've been a volunteer. And so
Since you were 12?
Since I was 12, I was a candy striper at Danbury Hospital.
Oh, wow.
But you know, my parents were volunteers. They each belonged to organizations in the community. My mom was a member of Hadassah. My dad was a Knights of Pythias. And they used to do things in the community. And so when they did things for the benefit of the community, my sisters and I went along. And so this is part of my childhood. It was always ingrained in me to give back to the community.
So it's really part of your blood, so to speak.
Exactly.
I mean, sorry for the candy striper reference.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, Danbury Hospital was pretty wild to be a volunteer back in the 1970s because there was no rubber gloves, there were no, none of this sort of medical precautions. So I was in the labs washing test tubes, and I was bringing around medical fluids to different parts and wheelchairing patients. It was really fascinating. It was a great way to learn about the community. And giving tours to Boy Scouts, I remember, when the hospital expanded. But I always loved volunteering.
And you're a Danbury native?
I am. I grew up here. We moved here when I was 12. And from New York. So this was sort of culture shock when I moved to Danbury. I was a city kid. I lived in Queens, and but always had aspired to be in the theater. I did the Brookville Playhouse when I was a kid. I was in every play in high school and in college, and was an intern at Candlewood Theater actually for a summer, and decided that Broadway wasn't waiting for me. I got into radio instead, loved doing radio, but then thought I needed to have a job for a grown-up. I had just gotten married and wanted to do something interesting, and I thought travel was great. And so I was in the travel industry for 20 years. At the same time, working in community theater, doing other things through my synagogue to make the community a better place.
So you always had that community give back all along?
Right.
Okay.
Then about 25 years ago, I got involved with a group called National Council of Jewish Women because another mother who had just had a baby, as I did, I had a 1-year-old, asked me to help out in vision screening for preschoolers. And I thought that was a great project.
Vision, that's interesting.
It was very interesting. So as a volunteer, I went and did vision screening, held little fishes in front of kids' eyes to see which direction it was. And so this way, their parents would be able to follow it up and bring the kids to an eye doctor if they needed to. Okay. At the time, I was asked to go to a meeting, I remember, and I said, I don't do meetings, I don't work with women, I like to work, in my theater groups, it was working with men and women. I did a lot of directing and producing and acting. And I said, okay, fine, I'll come to a meeting. And then they asked me to join the board, which I did, and wrote the bulletin, and then 4 or 5 years later became president of the section. Now I sit on the national board. I'm a national officer, actually. I'm the national recording secretary for the National Council of Jewish Women. I just most recently chaired our mission to Israel and had 50 people on it, and we met with members of Knesset. It was great, but all as a volunteer. learning all the time to do board development and volunteer recruitment and budgeting and fund development and fundraising and all of these skills which now I get paid for as my job as the executive director of the Volunteer Center. So by being a volunteer and learning all of the skills for nonprofit management, I now get paid to do the things that I used to do as a volunteer.
Wow, so you're really capitalizing on all that experience.
It's great. It is great. Other than starring on Broadway, this is my this is my
This is your
perfect
flash in the
job.
pan.
This is my greatest job. And and I've done lots of things. I own a chocolate company. I was a full-time chocolatier for 4 years and did the chocolate show in New York. And but this to me nourishes my soul. I love going to work every day. You asked what the Volunteer Center does. Anything that has to do with volunteers, we're involved with. So we recruit volunteers from the community, and we refer them to every nonprofit organization. So right now, I think we have about 150 volunteer organizations on our website.
Okay.
You can go to our website, it's really easy. It's www.volunteerdanbury.org.
Okay, volunteerdanbury.org, okay.
On it, right now, currently, are 146 different opportunities to volunteer.
So like if I wanted to volunteer, I just felt like, I needed to do something to give back to the community. I would go on your website and I would find out what opportunities there are. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can even narrow it to say, I want to work with kids, or I want to work with animals. I
Is
want
there
to
a search?
Yes.
Oh,
and so you can narrow it to location, you can narrow it to who you are, what category you fit into, what category you want to be involved with. Do you want to be involved with the arts or with the health services or with any specific field that is encompassed in nonprofit? And then you can say, I want to work with kids, or I want to work with seniors, or I want to. It's a marvelous tool. But it's not the only thing that we do. We also have someone in our office who's just celebrating 20 years of service with the Volunteer Center. She is our Associate Director, Priscilla Bailing.
Almost as well. So you said 1974 it started, right? Now,
So
how long have you been there?
Actually, next week will be my 4th anniversary, so I'll be starting my 5th year.
Okay. So you're a rookie compared to her, I
Yes.
guess.
And I stand on the shoulders of 5 other women who really shepherded the Volunteer Center over these almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And so there hasn't been a lot of turnover. There's been longevity in the women who have held the role of executive director. And Priscilla started when she was a young mother in 1988. And now she has grandchildren of her own. But she really is the heart and soul of the Volunteer Center. Agencies know her because she's the person that they speak with when they need volunteers or when they need goods or services. We also, when a nonprofit needs an item, they will call us and say, we need X. So here's a great story. We get a phone call from someone actually at the United Way who said, we have an agency that is starting a group home for kids and they want a pool table.
Oh,
And we
great.
said, oh, a pool
That's kinda
table.
pricey.
Okay. So we put it into our column. We have a weekly column of unlimited size. It's really a blessing from the News Times. And that's been there for years and years and years, probably as long as we've been in existence.
Wow.
And every Thursday in the neighbor section you open up and there's a whole column of opportunities to volunteer, and those are usually the newest listings. In addition, we have a wish list. So in here was the listing for the pool table. We got 5 pool tables. So we were able
you
not only to
kidding?
fill that, we were able to call 4 other organizations and say, we have a pool table, would you like one?
Can you imagine? So these were individuals in the community.
In the
that
community,
said,
just
"You know what,
reaching
I'm gonna
out.
donate this."
We are so blessed with
That is
people in
incredible.
our community who see needs and fill them. We have been asked for right now photocopiers or copying machines are the biggest need in the nonprofit community, believe it or not. And periodically we get a call saying, we have a copier, we want to donate. 20 organizations will contact us when we we send out an email to our list saying we need
you
a
get 20
photocopy.
copiers?
No, we keep asking for copiers and we get. So we try to take them in and send them out as much as possible. But, you know, we're partners in the community. So when the Santa's Workshop people did, which is a fabulous initiative of all volunteers, and they create a Santa's Workshop. And they have children and families come in one at a time, so it's like their personal time with Santa.
Oh, wow.
All of the toys are donated. And this year we partnered with them. We probably had about $10,000 to $15,000 worth of toys come through our office that were either gently used or new that we then passed on to the
10,000.
Unbelievable amount of toys came into our office. From Barbies to doll houses to hockey sets it was incredible. We are truly blessed with a very giving community. We have some real needs. There are some real poverty issues in our community, and we have people who reach out and help any way that they can. And so it's not only volunteering their time, but it's volunteering their resources, to reaching into their own pockets and to also provide the needed goods and services. So we have a business volunteer council at the Volunteer Center. We have about 20 paid members, all of the bigger corporations and smaller businesses, and we have signature projects. So we do a back to school program where we supply backpacks, a $100 gift certificate, and school supplies to at-risk children in Danbury. This past year we helped, I think, about 450 children.
Wow.
We also do a Spring Buddy Baskets program. Last year we did Spring Buddy Baskets for 760 kids.
Now, how does an individual who may be of need, how do you locate them? How do they come to you?
We work with our partners in the nonprofit world. So we are not a direct service agency. We are the connector. We connect the donors and the people who are at risk. But the people who are at risk are already receiving services from different organizations.
Like youth services,
exactly,
or
like the
Department of Children and Family
Hispanic, right? Like
Services.
the Hispanic Center, the AIDS Project. So we go to some of the smaller agencies that don't necessarily get big governmental help, but we also deal with Department of Mental Retardation and Children and Families Aid, and you know. Every organization in the community that has those needs for kids, then we partner with them to supply them with the Spring Buddy Baskets. That primarily is Head Start. There's 300 kids in Head Start this year, and that's our first target group. So once we fill the Head Start need, then we move on to other organizations in the community by Priscilla reaching out to them, saying, do you have these needs? We have this project going on. One of the things that we did this year for the first time is we did a holiday fruit basket project, which you'd think it was a fruit basket, but it was for seniors, and many of these seniors don't have the money to buy fresh fruit. We needed 150. We got 300 from the community, and so we were able to help other organizations to provide them with fruit baskets for the holidays. And so all of this through the business community, all of this by promoting business volunteerism within our community and having the businesses and their employees step up.
So when you say business volunteerism, you mean you reach out to like a GE and have their employees volunteer?
Yes, Danbury Hospital and Beringer Ingelheim and IBM, and I can, Advantage, Adecco, Amica, so it could be two people in an office and they participate.
But they'll champion it and they'll get all the resources.
Exactly. Over the past 18 months, we've had 77 businesses participate in our programs and projects for our Business Volunteer Council. In addition to that, so that's one thing that we do. We recruit volunteers. We also recruit board members in the community. So if you wanted to be a board member for a nonprofit organization, you would contact us and we would connect you with an organization that needs board members. Right now, 14 nonprofits in the community need board members. It is an ongoing cycle because board members should rotate on nonprofits. They shouldn't be there for 10 years, which
so you get the fresh ideas, the new energy.
Exactly. In addition to that, we teach, in fact, that's where I came from just now. I taught a class in board member basics to teach people in the community what boards do and what they can expect when they sit on a board, or what the questions are that they should be asking before they join a board. We do a Build a Better Board workshop. It's very alliterative, so that board members know how they can increase their board. What's the board cycle of how they recruit and how they orient and how they train and how they really build a community in their board, and so that the board works with the staff as a team.
So do the boards actually use you as a sourcing
Yes.
arm?
Yes.
So, because I always thought that boards, I don't know, I always thought that the boards, just had people in mind that from area businesses that they then tapped into, but they actually will go and source from you. It sounds
Well,
like.
any volunteer, it's always best to recruit from within or to recruit your own.
Yep.
When you cannot do that, or as a tool, we're a tool for nonprofits.
Okay.
So it's actually, in addition to teaching them how to recruit their own, we will help them recruit and find people in the community. I mean, ultimately, my goal would be that every board is high functioning in this community, and they don't need us to recruit board members because they have the skills to recruit their own board members, that they can recruit, that they know how to outreach to people in the community who want to serve on nonprofit boards.
So is that sort of your charter, if you will? You're training and educating the boards to eventually go out of that business, do you think?
Yes. Well,
Realistically?
we're trying to do preventative,
Yes.
and we're trying to treat the problems afterwards. We have something called Board Member Roundtable, which I call board member therapy.
I was going to say group therapy. Is that what it is?
Because they come around, they sit at the table, and they go, "Oh my God, you're our board member. Our meetings last forever. Or we have no agenda, or there's someone we want to kill on our board, and how do we do that?"
Yeah.
And so they all
All the
listen. All of the different issues, and they learn from each other, and we discuss best practices. And then, I like to turn things on its head and say, have you ever thought of X? Or here's some resources that you can go to on the web. Or we're available to come in and do a workshop with your board. And that's what we're funded to do. There is no charge to any nonprofit.
So you do some interventions with the board?
Yes, we do. So I've worked with, I don't want to say their names, but I've worked with some dysfunctional boards to help them function better, or if they were in transition, or to help them synthesize their strategic plan or create a strategic plan. So we do that kind of stuff too. So it's not just recruiting volunteers, it's helping organizations learn how to work with volunteers. We do volunteer management training. It's a 6-week class that I teach. The curriculum was developed by the Points of Light Foundation specifically for volunteer centers. And in 6 weeks, they learn how to recruit volunteers and train volunteers, orient them, recognize them, evaluate volunteer programs. We've had 50 volunteer managers in Western Connecticut take this class already.
Wow. So you really run the whole gamut. You work with the nonprofit organizations to help support their efforts. You work with the boards of the nonprofits. You work with volunteers and help match them to volunteer opportunities.
Yes.
Sounds like you do a lot of outreach and training. And you personally wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
You wear sort of the executive director of your organization, but then you're doing a lot of teaching and outreach.
I do a lot of teaching and outreach.
How do you juggle all those balls?
I have no children at home anymore.
That helps.
A very supportive husband.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's not going to work every day. This
Yeah.
is what I love to do. Part of my job as executive director is to be the presence and the voice of the volunteer center, to go out to talk to people about what it is that we do. I want to be a household word. I want to be, the Red Cross or the Cancer Society. I want people in this community to know that the Volunteer Center has been here for 30 years, and that we're going to be here for another 30 years, that we're part of a Volunteer Center national network. There's 500 volunteer centers all over the country and North America, that we do the same thing, that we're part of the Points of Light Hand-On Network, because the Hands-On Network and the Points of Light Foundation merged this year. To create the biggest volunteer initiative in the country.
Let me ask you this. My assumption would be that there's been a huge influx of volunteers in the last 5 to 10 years due to two things. One, the aging baby boomers, some who are retiring early and then want to volunteer. Two, a lot of the area's public schools are now requiring high school students, as an example, to have so many volunteer hours before they graduate. Is my assumption correct that there's a lot more volunteers than we've ever had before? Like a larger pool, or is that just a fallacy?
I think that those two pools create challenges that most agencies and organizations cannot use student-aged volunteers unless they're with their parents, so it turns into a family project. I also am very curious about what this is doing to our kids, because mandatory volunteering is sort of an oxymoron. And not every...
Am I really volunteering or am I being pushed to do it?
Exactly. And not every kid has the capacity to do that. And
in what sense?
Depending upon where they're volunteering. If they're volunteering at a soup kitchen, if they're volunteering at a daycare center, if they're volunteering at a homeless shelter, they may feel very uncomfortable being there.
So it brings up things for them, just
exactly.
the experience.
Exactly.
Is that a bad thing?
You know, I think that time will tell.
Yeah.
And that by us requiring our kids to do mandatory service, will they, when they get older, not want to do it? Because they were made to do it.
Is it a sense of just trying to, I mean, it's different when you get the values from home. Like you were saying, your parents, it was just how you grew up, but you're saying the schools are mandating it. So is it really sort of inculcating that sense of give back, social responsibility?
And I have to tell you,
or is it going to be rebellion?
Well, and I'll tell you that probably 80% of the kids who have to volunteer, it's their parents who call and say, my kid needs to volunteer, can you help find something? Yes, it's a little disconcerting. It is. So, you know, I mean, that's the reality of it. It's called service learning. That's this new component of, but you know what I think the schools can do to make it better is creating projects that the kids can buy into, that they have some ownership of, instead of
be excited about.
Exactly, instead of plugging them into different slots in the community.
Is that another little side business for you too?
Oh, I don't know.
You're going to do outreach.
You know, I have so many ideas. I don't sleep at night.
Idea.
My husband always says, "You keep thinking, Butch. That's what you're good at." So
you've got a lot of energy. You're a great person for the job.
I love my job.
I mean, what are your biggest leadership challenges, and how are you meeting them?
To say no.
Okay.
To put limits on things. Yeah. To really vet ideas out before we implement them. You know, there's limited resources. We have a staff of 4 at the volunteer center.
You do all this with a staff of 4. That's really impressive.
And actually, I'm the only full-time employee. Everybody else works 28 hours or less. We actually also run the community service program at the courthouse. So if you make a wrong decision and are mandated to do community service, well, there's no criminals who do community service. So I mean, these are people who make
a bad choice.
Exactly. Yeah. We help them find a suitable placement. That's one of our programs. So we have a manager. We have someone who sits in the courthouse who does that. As far as baby boomers are concerned, and I learned I'm a typical baby boomer because I think I'm 20 years younger than I actually am, and that you know, how can I possibly have a son who's 23 and going to be married when I myself am only 25.
Right.
And so, you know, it's hard for us to accept, first of all, that we're grown-ups and that baby boomers want it their way. We want it, so not only do we want to volunteer, but we want to volunteer and we want to create the volunteer position, and we want to tell them how we can do it better, and how what they're doing is wrong. And so
they're hard to manage. Is that what you're saying?
No, you have to manage them creatively, because baby boomers put in the right position can do marvelous things.
So you want to tap into that creativity.
Absolutely,
and
the ownership and the initiative, and have them take something and run with it. The best ideas that we have in our office come from our volunteers. When we have people who come into the office to volunteer and we're working on a project, and they'll say, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And it's like, wow. No, that's a great idea. We set a climate of, actually Priscilla says this, if you're breathing, you can volunteer. And we take...
You just want more bodies?
I'll tell you, anybody can volunteer. If you're at home, or if you're agoraphobic or you're homebound, you can volunteer. There's absolutely...
Get stuff envelopes or something.
Absolutely. We have had deaf volunteers. We have had wheelchair-bound volunteers. We had a woman was lovely, who had a brain injury. And every week that she came in, I'd have to explain the job all over again to her because she did not retain what it was she was supposed to do. But she was a great volunteer.
That was amazing that she kept coming back.
It was, well, we partner with Ability Beyond Disability, and we have volunteers in our office that really give people an opportunity to get back into the workforce. And in fact, one of our biggest success stories is we had a gentleman come in who was very shy, very quiet, had some emotional problems, and he came in weekly, and every week, and I trained him how to do stuff on Excel and the computer. And he just blossomed to the point where he went and got a job, a paying job.
That's amazing.
And this holiday season, he wrote us a letter thanking all of us and how much he missed all of us. And if it wasn't for us and our crazy atmosphere and our nurturing, he would never be where he is now. And so, you know, we have a lot of
that must be so rewarding.
It is. It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. When we had our deaf volunteer, she spoke beautifully. We would oftentimes forget she was deaf, and then we'd say, Jill, could you get the phones? Because she was part of, she was, you know, a vital part of our staff.
Yeah.
We treat all of our volunteers the same as paid staff. Some people, they're all staff. Some are paid, some are unpaid. And that's what we encourage nonprofits to do, is to treat volunteers with that level of respect and to really make people feel that they're part of the team.
So, Patti, if somebody was watching this show sitting at home and had never volunteered before, and you're so motivating, got really inspired by your energy and your talk, what would be the first step for them to do?
A couple of things. First, I would say go to our website.
Okay.
And look at all the different possibilities of what there is to do in this community to volunteer.
Can you just give the website again one more time?
www.volunteerdanbury.org.
Okay.
O-R-G.
Okay. So they would go to the website, they would see what's up there.
They would go to the bottom of the page, they would click on opportunities to volunteer. And then you get every opportunity right now, which is 146. If none of them interest them, call our office, because Priscilla is known for creating volunteer jobs for people.
Okay, terrific. You've been so inspiring. Patti, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you very much for joining us this evening. And until next time, I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum.